Welcome to this explainer. You know, the streets you drive on, the legal codes you follow, and even the calendar hanging on your wall all have a direct line back to a single ancient city. Today, we're unpacking the rise and fall of a civilization so incredibly powerful, its echo literally still dictates how the modern world functions. Because for centuries, Rome didn't just rule the world, it was the absolute center of it.
At its absolute peak, Rome boasted these invincible armies, unimaginable wealth, and controlled the lives of millions. But by the end, we're talking about a sacked capital, a completely bankrupt economy, and a shattered military. It is just a stunning reversal. A city whose population once topped 1 million people was eventually reduced to just tens of thousands, living among the ruins. An empire that had everything lost absolutely everything.
Okay, let's dive into this. How on earth does a superpower with that much wealth, discipline, and military might just crumble? It's a mystery that has completely fascinated historians and modern leaders alike. But to understand this unthinkable fall, we really have to go back and understand their spectacular rise. Section 1. Origins of a Republic, from Myth to Power. So, going back more than 2,700 years ago, legend tells us Rome was founded by Romulus and Remus, brothers supposedly raised by a she-wolf. Wild, right? But setting aside the mythical wolf for a second, the real genius of Rome's founding was actually its geography. Settling right on the Tiber River gave this otherwise unremarkable village a huge strategic edge. They leveraged that spot to evolve from a swampy little settlement into a major regional powerhouse. By the time of the Punic Wars, they weren't just beating formidable rivals like Carthage. They were scooping up massive wealth, expanding their territory, and securing total control over the Mediterranean.
Now, what really fueled all this incredible early expansion was their revolutionary political system. Rome became a republic with a surprisingly sophisticated system of checks and balances. Citizens elected leaders, senators debated laws, and military commanders protected their expanding interests. It was an incredibly advanced structure for the time. But here's the catch. Over time, this very system completely gridlocked. The intense political rivalries that were meant to balance power, they ended up turning politicians into bitter, violent enemies, which threatened to tear the republic apart from the inside out.
Section 2. Forging an Empire, Conquest and Civil War. And this brilliantly illustrates a dangerous new dynamic. The domino effect of their expansion created a massive problem. They defeated rivals like Carthage and just kept marching, dramatically expanding territory across places like Gaul. But the crucial shift happened right inside the military. Thanks to a series of updates known as the Marian Reforms, soldiers started relying directly on their generals for their pay and their retirement lands, rather than the state itself. Suddenly, troops were fiercely loyal to these charismatic, wealthy commanders instead of the Senate. And while that set the perfect trap for a dictator to take over. The most famous of these ambitious generals was, of course, Julius Caesar. Caesar's military victories made him, without a doubt, Rome's most powerful man, but that success came at a lethal cost. In 44 BCE, Julius Caesar was assassinated, stabbed 23 times right on the floor of the Senate. The conspirators genuinely believed they were doing the right thing, taking necessary action to save the Republic from his centralized, dictatorial power. But history is just full of vicious ironies. Instead of saving the Republic, the assassination plunged Rome into utter chaos, triggering a brutal series of civil wars that effectively destroyed the exact Republic those senators bled to protect. Section 3. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Out of the ashes of all that chaos, Octavian, who you probably know later as Augustus, emerged as the very first Roman emperor, and he ushered in the Pax Romana. This was a period of nearly 2 centuries where Rome experienced unprecedented internal stability and just flourishing trade. Now, peace is kind of a loose term here. The borders were still defended fiercely and violently, but the internal stability was an absolute economic miracle. 200 years without a catastrophic civil war in the ancient world, that allowed cities to expand and prosper like never before. During this golden age, Roman engineers completely transformed daily life. They built these highly advanced roads paved so deeply that some of them are literally still being driven on today in Europe. They engineered magnificent aqueducts that use nothing but gravity to deliver millions of gallons of fresh running water right into crowded urban centers. And their architecture was just unparalleled. Take the Colosseum, an absolute masterpiece, capable of holding tens of thousands of spectators. And get this, they could even flood the floor of it to host massive mock naval battles right in the middle of the city. Unbelievable. 60 million. At its absolute height, more than 60 million people lived under Roman rule.
To put that into perspective for you, that was roughly 20% of the entire global population at the time. The empire stretched all the way from the rain-soaked hills of Britain right across to the Middle East. Its economy fueled global trade, and to the people living within its borders, Rome genuinely seemed entirely eternal.
Section 4. The Empire Collapses. The Unthinkable Fall.
So the crucial point is, empires rarely fall for just one reason. They suffer a cascade of failures. The cracks in Rome's foundation became gaping chasms during the crisis of the 3rd century. Severe political instability returned with just a dizzying turnover of emperors. The economy absolutely tanked. To fund massive armies, emperors severely debased the currency, leading to this hyperinflation that made Roman money virtually worthless. Plus, the military was stretched impossibly thin, trying to defend these vast borders against fierce external threats, including Germanic tribes and the terrifying Huns. It became a multi-front crisis that Rome simply could no longer afford to fix.
Which brings us to the year 410 CE. This was the year the unthinkable happened. The mighty city of Rome, the center of the world, was sacked by the Visigoths under their king Alaric. Invaders actually breached the walls and freely pillaged the streets of the capital.
When the news broke, it triggered an existential crisis across the known world. The aura of invincibility was gone. Let that sink in for a moment. The psychological shock of 410 CE was enormous. Long before the government officially ceased to exist, the true collapse had already happened in the minds of the people. The magic was broken, and citizens everywhere began to question whether Rome could even survive at all.
The situation just steadily worsened until a final, really solemn date, 476 CE. The Western Roman Empire officially fell when the final emperor was quietly removed from power. An era had ended, and the mightiest civilization the Western world had ever known was wiped off the map. However, it's absolutely crucial to note that only the western half fell into the Dark Ages. The eastern half, known as the Byzantine Empire, would actually survive and thrive for another 1,000 years. Section 5. Rome's Eternal Legacy. Ideas that survived. Now, what's really interesting about this is that while the political boundaries of the Western Empire vanished, the actual essence of Rome absolutely refused to die. Modern languages like French, Spanish, and Italian, they evolved directly from their Latin roots. Global legal systems are still deeply shaped by Roman law. The very words Senate, Republic, and Emperor are basically Roman ghosts lingering around in our modern vocabulary. Our very concept of a republic was beta-tested in the Roman Forum, proving they left an architectural and cultural blueprint that humanity has been following ever since. I want to leave you today with this simple but incredibly profound thought. No empire is eternal. The rise and fall of Rome teaches us that no power lasts forever, and even the most seemingly invincible modern civilizations can decline. But it also proves that great ideas, innovations, and human ambition can survive long, long after the empires that birthed them disappear. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What parts of our modern world will still be around 1,500 years from now? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and